Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this wonderful, beautiful world. Today we have an excellent event and we've got some great people on board. And of course, we're really delighted to have Denny back from his many travels. So, Denny, I want to take it away, but one comment before. Don't forget, Wireshark is having Shark Fest coming up real soon. You got like 50 days, I think it is, or not even that. It's like 20 days now. It's June 25th at the Computer History Museum. So if you haven't signed up, you ought to sign up. So Denny, take it away.
Thank you, Tim. We typically start talking among ourselves about 15 minutes before the show. I think it's time to change it to 30 minutes. We got so much to talk about. We don't see each other enough. But once again, we're having Keith Bromley back from formerly Ixia and now Keysight. Yeah. And some of you might remember in the past, we focused mainly on visibilities, and Keith was always the person that invited one of his partner to come talk to us. But today is a little bit different. Today, Keith, we are talking about resiliency now, and also you're bringing a friend from your company and not outside the company. So explain that. How is that? What are we trying to do today?
Well, I got Steve McGregory here with me. He's one of our security experts. And so I still want to talk about visibility. Love visibility. It's very important. In my mind, visibility is security. So what we wanted to talk about here was a concept called security resilience. And it's not new, but wanted to go back and revive this concept where basically traditional defense models are not enough. Everybody's seeing that in the news. Companies are getting hacked. It's not a question of if you're going to get hacked, but when. And you can see that these compromises last a long time. I think recently in the news, there was Panera Bread Company, there was Saks Fifth Avenue, where intruders had gotten into the networks and were there for 8 months or a year. And these companies didn't know about it. So one of the things we wanted to really talk about was, okay, you've got to make your network defensive. You got to defend it as best you can. But you also have to understand the bad actors probably are going to get into your network. So now what are you going to do? You got to have a plan. You got to be able to see what's going on. You've got to have a focus on reducing cost and reducing, if not eliminating, data exfiltration once they get in. And so that's what we're going to talk about here today, is just making your security architecture resilient. And Steve's going to help me out. Steve, if you want to introduce yourself, you're one of our experts.
Good morning, Steve.
Hi, good. Actually, it's still morning. Yes, for me too. I'm Steve McGregory. I'm the Senior Director of Application and Threat Intelligence at Ixia, Keysight Business. My team is a research center who provides all of Ixia, and now we're working with Keysight with global application and threat intelligence. What that means is we follow all the bad guys, whatever's happening on the internet and the networks. We keep up with that every day, and we wrap that up into content that the Ixia products, whether visibility or test or security, can use to supply the customers with the actionable intelligence, as they say. They need to make the right decisions to do their job and make it hopefully easier to do their job. That's a key thing for us.
So Tim, you and Steve actually have a lot in common.
Yeah, we're both geeks.
We love Wireshark.
I do a lot of consulting for companies that are trying to at least formulate a thought process. Most of them don't get much past that. And the NIST standard gives us at least some foundation to go forward on. But, you know, what Keith said early on is so true. I'd say 95% of the time out there, people don't know they've been breached for, if they find out they're breached, it's for hundreds of days. And earlier, I think I made a comment in our discussion was that I felt that not even 10% of data managers, network managers, would even know if they had a data breach. And I was told that I was being generous again, which is not usually one of my characteristics. But it's scary. And resilience, I mean, like Keith said, if you can't see your network, everything else you do is wasted.
Yeah, and if you look at if you look at a couple data points out there, the Ponemon Institute says that the average length of time from intrusion to identification is 191 days. Now that's average, so some will be more or less, but it's like, come on. And then you look at another stat, 57% never know that they're breached. They have to be informed by their business partners, their customers, or some sort of law enforcement agency that they were breached. And it's like, okay, that it's not good for job security, and it's not good for the company. It's like, what's going on here? So got it to change.
So Keith, it's like you said, it's not if, but when. But unfortunately, it's not even when will, but when did. When did you get that? Yeah, so that's really unfortunate.
Yes. That is.
I think the industry has pushed people into a defense and prevention model where they think too much about that. They spend too much into that, and what we're seeing is, as you're all describing here, these day in and day out where we are notified of a breach, and that breach, the hackers were able to stay in that network for way longer than they needed to. The truth is that the longer they stay in there, the more nasty your network gets, the more things they compromise. I mean, if a hacker gets in your network, most likely they need a few days, a week to get what they're wanting. And even if it takes them more time, it doesn't matter, because as you're pointing out, most people don't even know that they're there. So we have to really turn that into a focus where we can detect them as soon as possible. I mean, if we don't, they end up selling our networks to other people. So by the time you find out, the cost of remediation goes into many millions of dollars, and not to even mention what the brand impact might be, right?
There was a study done not too long ago that said that like 78% of networks that have been breached had residuals after they, quote, cleaned it up. And, I guess I'm old style. Of course I am old, but I look at networks as a human being, as an individual. Every network has its own temperature, its own heart rate, its own, everything. And if you learn what's normal for your network, it's really easy to see when things are not right.
Oh, I mean, it's okay. There, I want to say something, Tim. So you and I hit it off very well every time. I believe everything you say, but sometimes we simplify things, right? So I don't want to oversimplify and make statements. What we do as security people, like a lot of times, I'll give you an example. Security people say there was a patch available. Why didn't you patch? Well, the truth is patches sometimes hurt, right? And the network may be very large, but how can you take a very large, so to your point is that I agree wholeheartedly with you, and I learned the lesson the hard way. I mean, why I got into security was back in '99 when my little ISP business got hacked, and I wasn't really monitoring things. So they went a whole month, right? And then I got my bill for this large bandwidth usage, and I'm like, what happened? So after that day, boy, you think I monitored? Yes, I monitored. I monitored every system that was what it was using as far as bandwidth, So you live, you make mistakes, you learn, security is a whack-a-mole thing. But so how can we turn it into a difficult problem? I mean, we're both saying the same thing. Monitor, know your network, right? It's key. And how do we make that simple? Well, the right type of and that's where we come in. Obviously visibility is key to that, because you can't monitor what you don't see, and you won't be able to monitor things without the right tools. And so I don't want to oversimplify it, but what you said is very true. You just have to put the right products and tools in place to make sure that everything that's in your network, what it normally looks like, and when you see things that are outside of that, right? And even to say a little more about that, which would be what I'm talking with everyone about, is doing that isn't easy too. So I think key instruments for us will be automation, of things going forward, as well as like machine learning. I always say, you say treat the network like a human, which we're agreeing, and then I'm going to say let computers compute, right? Human analysts can't process millions of alerts a day, right?
No.
So you've got to get the right tools, the right products, the right things in place that can help you have that visibility, help use the machine learning, use the things that you can put out there to give you hints and kind of highlight or bring things up, raise things up that you need to focus on. Because if you're looking at just everything, you're gonna miss things.
Well, you know, one of the big things I see is people don't even understand what their network's supposed to be doing. When you go in and you talk to someone,
yes,
you know, what is the goal of your network? What makes your network a successful component of your business?
right.
And all this other stuff is, you know, kill it, destroy it, stop it. Because, you know, there was a study done by Wall Street Journal not too many years ago, and I always still joke about it. The question was, how come you do a lot of your personal business on your network at work? And some outrageous number of people, was like 90%, said, well, because at work they had unlimited bandwidth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sorry, no, not the right answer. You know, so, you know, I'll agree, Keith. I mean, resilience though is a key feature. If you're going to build a network and you're going to be the guys and gals in charge of it, resilience is an awesome step. It's a scary step because that word resilience scares people.
Well, but there's also a lot of power and strength in it, right? Because resilience is about the ability of some sort of object or component to be deformed, bent, mangled, whatever, but then be able to come back to its original look and feel and capabilities. And that's what we're talking about here is, okay, so you're going to get hurt, you're going to get damaged, but how quickly can you recover and how fully can you recover?
Yeah.
And that's where, again, the visibility tied in with the security can help you. As Greg said, Steve McGregory said, the tools are there in place that allow you to see what's going on. You then have to tie it in with your security tools, your security processes, your capabilities, whatever you want to do, and then go execute. But you've got everything you need there. You don't have to.
Yeah. So we were talking about this before we went in, is that people will spend all their money on trying to prevent something that's perimeter or you know, wherever it is. They're going to put lots of prevention in place, and we realized that that's not working 100% of the time. So would you put 100% of your money in something that didn't work 100% of the time? No, you wouldn't if you knew that. So, and you must invest in resiliency. You must invest in the model where you recognize this prevention doesn't work 100% of the time. So what do I need to do to quickly identify and bounce back? That's the investment you need to make. It's like, what can I do to know when something like that happens? Spend budget on that. Secondarily, you have to remediate. The sooner you can find it, the less money you spend on remediation.
Well, and you know what? Most people, when they go back and they actually recover from an attack, they actually wake up. They're like, oh gosh, what is all this? There was a study just released a couple of weeks ago that said that 78% of applications from companies going out into the internet were either breached already or breachable before they were sent out, because the building blocks inside have never been cleaned up, the jars haven't been closed or whatever. And you know, you think about that, that's scary right there. And yet we'll take an application that's never been tested and we'll put it out in the internet and allow people to have access to our network.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. You mentioned it earlier, and I mean, this is knowing what your network's supposed to do or what your people are doing. There's a thing called shadow IT that comes up all the time. Like, visibility will help you identify what types of file sharing are being used, right? What users are doing Twitter, from which systems, right? Facebook, similar thing. If you're going to allow it, hey, you want to know who's using it from what systems. Hackers are very good at what they do once they get in there to try to exfiltrate, but to do these things that allow them to laterally move or do in your network, they'll do things that are not common, right? They'll do like an RDP session outward, where, you know, in RDP, generally, if you're doing RDP from in your network or out, it's the traffic patterns will change, right? Depending on where they're at. This is the kind of stuff visibility will provide you. And that's the key points to knowing your network, having that visibility, but then also knowing what is outside of the norms, these anomalies and things like that.
One of the things I was going to say also that neat about Keysight is people can come to you and you know, part of being a good vendor is the ability to learn from that vendor. And you know, I've known Keith a long time, and I've known Ixia, and I know Anui, and I've known a lot of the products. And that's one of the advantages if you come to a company like Keysight, the visibility group or that team, is you can actually learn a lot besides looking at deployment of technology.
One of the other things I wanted to jump in here and mention, though, because I keep hearing, you know, we're throwing around the terms scary and things to do and capabilities, and you guys may or may not disagree with me on this or agree with me on this, but some of these things, you know, that you can do really aren't that difficult. I mean, they take a little bit of effort, but it's not like you have to go boil the ocean. You know, if you just start with something and start putting several of these things together, you can actually get, I think, a fairly good look at what's going on in the system and see and recover. Like one of the things would be you can look at application level information and you can start to get some indicators of compromise pretty quickly. If you see applications there that shouldn't be there, if you see spikes in bandwidth that are going on that shouldn't be there. And there's dashboards that'll just show you this application level traffic. There's other things like threat intelligence gateways you can put at the edge of your network where traffic coming in from known bad IP addresses, you block right there, which to me is more defensive. But if it's constantly updated, that access list there, even if the threat gets through and it's discovered a couple days later by our ATI team or somebody else's team that it's now a bad address, those access lists get updated. So now when the malware starts trying to exfiltrate data, it's still going to get blocked at the perimeter there and blocked before it can leave the network. So you did get compromised, but technically you could say, in my mind, you didn't get breached because the data did not leave your network in that one instance. Now, that's one case, but you start putting several of these things together, and I think you can get a pretty formidable, resilient system. I don't know what you guys think about that, but
that's very true. I would actually like to continue with Tim, what you were saying just a moment right before that. I agree with you, and I will come back to that. But Keysight, you mentioned Anui and then Ixia, right? These companies, and you know, I came with Breaking Point. I say this over and over to people, and they say, what differentiates you? And I'm like, I have a whole different worldview than you do. I come from the Breaking Point plus the visibility and the test market, where I understand the limitations of products and capabilities, you know, that are out there, or the methods that are being used, because we're going out finding this threat intelligence, what's live, what's active right now, and we're applying that to all of our products. But all of that information we gather about the weaknesses and strengths of products helps guide us, and we take that and put it in our products to help really make all these things better around us. We do many things that simplify the life of a security or network operations center person. Just day in and day out, we're looking at what are the problems they're facing, and we're trying to help them with them. That's what it goes back to what you're just saying right now about how simple it is to deploy these and get these into place and get that visibility. And it, you know, Keith, that to your point is because of the way this business is put together. We are this organization that has all this knowledge about test, measurement, security, visibility, the problems being faced by both network or security, and we're applying it in this grand scheme to enable people and simplify their lives of knowing what's in their network and what shouldn't be there, right?
Yep. And GDPR just coming out, the sunrise has just come up on GDPR. And even though GDPR may not affect everybody, I think it's developed a consciousness for everybody to think about, protecting data. And when we protect data, we also have to look at it from a cyber war. We have state actors out there that are doing their very best to destroy our economy and attack companies, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not just about that, but you got to take the first step. And if you're going to take the first step, you go with a company that not only can deploy something, but has a knowledge base, has a consultative base. So that's why I like the guys at Keysight. They won't give me a spectrum analyzer I need, but that's okay.
Talk to me after this. Maybe I can help you.
Talk to Steve. He likes cash and carry.
Yeah.
So you mentioned GDPR. This is a lot about resiliency right there, right? It's sad that the industry was so lackadaisical with your personally identifiable information, right? Very sad. The fact that databases with social security numbers or credit card numbers are sitting around with unencrypted. I don't even know what, but this is a regulation, unfortunately, is the necessary thing. EMEA, Europe, that whole, they're strong on regulations, of course. So, hey, it's better for us as users, because I'm a user of the networks that are supposed to be protecting my stuff. It's sad from my side because everyone talks to me every time one of my family comes and say, well, what, this breach happened and or whatever they're bringing up. I'm like, well, it's not surprising to me, not at all. And as soon as my data leaves my computer, I consider it gone, right? And that's pretty sad, but that's the state of it. And so as individuals on the networks and on the computers and the internet, we need something like GDPR, and we need to take minimal steps that we can as users to try to protect ourselves as well, which I love to put out there, and I will put it out there right now since I have this chance. One of the things I do, get a password manager, people. Please get a password manager.
A real one. A real one.
Yeah, a real one. So this whole mess of worrying about these wimpy websites that get hacked with your user credentials. If all your passwords are different, you don't really care that much about that.
Well, I just tell people, change your password no matter what. 90 days. Every 90 days.
You would. But hey, I manage about 500. I try to change them as much as possible. I manage over 500 accounts on my password manager. Going in and changing all those every 90 days is not, but I put you can star them, right? You can say which ones are my most important, and then get a report. And when you've not changed those, you change those, right? You change the ones that are like my company one for sure, right? Ones of my banks, things like that. Change them as much as possible, right?
So you wouldn't recommend Post-it notes as your database for password management?
Yeah, right. Hey, does that mean that we're going to get an article from you about the top 10 things you'll do start off with cybersecurity for an individual? How can you help?
Yeah, it's actually a site. You got it. I signed up right now. You got it.
All right.
Love it.
You heard that, Keith. Make sure you put it on the bathroom wall.
There's an electronic trail. There's paper trail. There's all sorts of trails.
So I'd love to.
Now we got it. We'd love to have it. So, but back to resilience, man. Listen, if you're involved in this industry at all, whether it's cybersecurity, application, whatever your job is, take the first step. And if you take that first step, take it with a company that has a vision and that can help you. That's my comment for the day.
Well, Tim, I don't get to do this often enough, but every time I'm on the show, I learn something, right? So what I learned from Keith is that The definition of resiliency is when the attack is certain, plan on how to come back alive quickly and with as little damage as possible. Kind of reminds me of an answer I gave once to someone who asked me why I meditate and why I want to be a Buddhist. And I said, well, when death is certain, let's plan on how to come back a better model.
Yeah, I mean, network security is a big word today, but it starts with people, and it starts with education. It starts with commitment. We see a lot of breaches are caused by employees, not only dumb ones, but ones that are malevolent. But as an industry, we need to come together. And even if we get one person to change the way they do things today, we've made a step in the right direction.
True wisdom spoken right there. Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. Humans are human. They make human mistakes. Computers compute. Those are the things I say. Expect that your users that, if they're not malicious to start with, they're not trying to be bad, they're going to make mistakes. Let's not allow those mistakes to take your whole company down. Resiliency is a key contributor to that, right?
And remember, your next Windows 10 update can take your network down.
Exactly. That's the patching thing I mentioned earlier, right? It's updating frequently, the cybersecurity industry, and I've been guilty of this. I'm like, patch, but if you go back and look at Equifax, the struts problem required to patch struts, you had to rebuild their entire web app, right? And then try to test it. So they needed time to do that, right? Anyway.
Well, that's bad management there. That Equifax was just bad.
Yeah, there was a lot of problems.
Hey, so Keith, I wonder if I could ask a question about Keysight itself. It seems to me that Keysight is really putting a lot of technology piece together. And what we're talking about today is really, kind of not only talk about visibility from the standpoint of prevention, but visibility from the standpoint of recovery. And that's where the word resiliency come from. But maybe in the next couple of minutes before we close the show, tell us a little bit more about the product, the technology pieces that Keysight has managed to put together. Like, for example, Steve talks about how he came in to Keysight as acquisition. You yourself came in Keysight as acquisition. How does all these pieces work together to benefit the user, the customers?
Well, if you look in general at Keysight, we're the world's leading test, measurement, and visibility solutions provider for everything from the physical layer to the application layer. So that's how everything comes together. We literally have test equipment. We've got application information level. We've got visibility equipment. We've got all these different components. When it comes to resilience, there's actually several different products, and it sort of depends on where you want to go. But like I said, there's a threat intelligence gateway. So we have a product there that does a great job called Threat Armor. We've got the taps and the packet brokers for visibility. That's layer 2 through 4 on that. There's also the application layer information I was talking about that's within the packet broker. And so now you can look at the application. There's geolocation in there, so you can see the data moving across your network as well by the different application types. There's also various things like cybersecurity training. We help out with that because that again gets back to training your people. It's one thing to go buy a car and never have any training class and just drive it off the lot. It's another to go and do a little practice and see, oh, this is how things are going to work and how things are going to come at you. So from a security point of view, it's great to talk about a piece of malware and Heartbleed or something, but if you can't recognize any of the patterns, you're up a creek. But at least if you do some cyber training, you can get some general indicators of how things are going to behave. You can start looking for patterns, and you may not know which malware variant is, but you can then drill down. So there's a whole bunch of things. There's also, even within the packet brokers, there's automation. So like Steve was talking earlier about automating things, you can automate the response from like a SIM over to the network packet broker, so that as a SIM identifies something, It can send commands over to the packet broker, which will then create new filters, send new data over to an IDS or whatever to go and start analyzing more data. There's SSL decryption. There's a whole lot of things you can do. And some are, like I said, on that defensive, trying to prevent. But once you get in, there's other things that can be used as this part of this resilient model.
And I think you said the right word. We have people. People are the key. You have people that can help you. We can teach you how to design. We can teach you even about what is a breach. I doubt if 10%, I'm doing nice again. I doubt if 10% of people out there even understand what a breach would look like in their network, in their technology configuration. So that's, to me, that's the key. Keysight offers the people, the knowledge base, of course, and equipment. But equipment is useless if you can't turn it on and you know where to put it.
Yeah, and as we've discussed before, I mean, a real security architecture, you've got to have the people, the processes, and the products that all come together in your network. And you've got to bring them all together. You can't neglect one. You can't go weak or light on one area. It's got to be all three.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of reminds me of when I used to do high altitude hiking with my son. You know, high altitude means anything above 9,500 feet, where you start to feel the effect. And then the key to survival, the first thing you have to do is identify the team members who had climbed before.
Yeah.
All the other ones are noise.
Yeah. Stick with the ones that know.
Yeah, identify the ones that know, and in that sense, I think that's why we're here is to introduce the experts and the people who have battle scars, right, to the industry, and that's why we spend so much time talking about the problem and just leave a little bit of time on the solution. So before I close the show, I want to say thanks again to Steve McGregory, who is kind enough to come on the show. Just briefly, once again, give us your final words. I know you've been in the industry for a long time, and you really believe in what you're doing, coming into Ixia and then Keysight through Breaking Point and Tipping Point before that. What's your final advice to our audience?
Wow. My final advice is that you're not alone. We're here. But I would say packet brokers, for me, and what we do, I truly believe in. It is a necessity that you have this visibility, that you're capable of quickly identifying what's wrong, what's not supposed to be there. That's through my 20 years in cybersecurity. That is the thing that I am right now so certain. If we get that right there, we've turned the battle has turned a lot more in our advantage. That's going to be the key.
Thank you. Yeah, being alone is a choice. You will be alone if you don't listen.
Yeah.
Tim, your final word?
Well, we had 1,500 plus major
today.
breaches last year. Those are reported breaches.
Yeah,
there were thousands more. Wake up, people. Go out and get advice from good people, trusted people with trusted companies. Take the first step. It ain't that hard of a step. It ain't like stepping off the Grand Canyon. It's just a short step. Ask for help. Go to great vendors.
And then the other thing, I'll jump in there too on that. So we've had the podcast here, but on the ixiacom.com website, there's a couple papers on security resilience. There's one, what is the topic? And there's another one that's got some best practices. And there's also a solution brief. And this is all free. Just go there, check it out. There's material out there. Go read it.
Yep.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Steve. And thanks again, Tim. And with that, I shall close the show. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.